if you had watched my latest review and kept up with my latest theories, you know I'm eating good right now. This chapter was actually quite surprising, at least for me, in terms of the things that I managed to pick up on when it came to my theories that were pretty much confirmed. That being that there's more than one connector in the same body. I kept it open how many connectors there could be in one body, of course being a minimum of 2. Personally, however, I thought that it was probably going to be the whole line of connectors, like every single individual from like going back to like 3,000 years ago. That's how I thought it would be. But it turns out that no, it's a bit more complicated than that because, well, there were 2 connectors at some point. Now, I will make a video later on separating the 2 connectors because what separates them, at least this is how it seems like. One of them is the dragon, which is Wulong, whose name means martial dragon. And he even says this to Mukaku's father that they share the name of dragon. And the other one is the tiger, which is, of course, Oma, we know he's the tiger's vessel. And that's probably who he is cloned from, the tiger. Now, the only thing that is a bit confusing here is Lohan. And that's what I want to talk about specifically because as I'm sort of thinking about it right now, I think it's more evident that Lohan is probably cloned from the tiger and that he's a tiger's vessel. The reason I say this is because we all know that Lohan is supposed to be the clone of Shen Wulong. Lohan himself said it. Yan even said it when, of course, Shen slapped him across the parking lot. Yan confirms that Lohan is the clone of Shen Wulong. And so you have Lohan and Yan that basically confirm the same idea. Then there is how he introduced himself to Ryuki and Oma. He said he was their eldest brother, meaning he comes from basically their generation or the same parent or ancestor. The other thing, and I think this is why he is probably cloned from the tiger's vessel, is the fact that Oma is the one who's able to read Lohan's character besides, say, Shen Wulong. Because I think there's really only one reason why Shen Wulong knows Lohan wants to betray him is because he has the spirit of Lohan within him. And this is an idea that I talked about in my understanding Shen Wulong theory or in my Nemesis theory. I forgot which one. Watch both to understand this a bit more. Lohan's plan of betrayal. I want people to understand this. It's a recent plan. Lohan hadn't planned for this long term. He may have had the idea long term, but he's only taking action after Wulong slapped him. That's when we started seeing Lohan actually begin to make his move to betray Shen Wulong. And so I think that the reason why Shen Wulong has at least some insight into Lohan's psyche is because of the fact that he's cloned from the tiger's vessel. But I will probably have to flesh this out a bit more in a separate video. For now, that's the general idea. But Yamashita being the one to figure it out was actually quite impressive. I think there was probably no one better to figure it out because we don't see anyone, at least Retsudo is actually pretty smart himself, but Yamashita is pretty smart as well. So him figuring it out is quite impressive and shows like, okay, Yamashita, he may be old, he may be a comedic character, but he is fairly smart and observant as well. However, what does this actually mean for the upcoming match? Well, unfortunately, this means that to beat the connector, you actually can't do that by beating one person. You need to beat both of them. That's the crazy part about it. So the difficulty of this is actually a lot higher when it comes to Shen Wulong as a fighter. But this also gives credibility to a lot of other things that we have seen in the series, but I'll cover that in a video that I'm going to release later on in this week. It's specifically talking about Lohan as well. But I want to transition from that because I think I've talked about that a bit too much. And I want to talk about Ryuki and some Koga training where they're trying to practice the Long Clan secret technique as well as the Long Clan fighting style. And it seems like we got a pretty good flowchart as to how these martial arts flow together and how Mukaku ended up building the Gaio style from the Long Clan secret technique, as well as of course some other random unnamed Japanese martial art that he picked up. I think that's fairly interesting in terms of the line, and we get to get some Mukaku lore because, again, Mukaku was actually around for a while when you think about it, but in terms of like how long we actually saw him on screen was fairly a short amount of time. So I think it was pretty good that we ended up getting that. But the final thing that I want to talk about is, of course, the thing that Yamashita was actually there for, or at least what Yamashita was sent to do by the Kengan Association, and that was discuss the rules and the scheduling of the match. Seems as though negotiations are still going on at this point, and they're directly negotiating with Shen because of course Shen's the boss of the worms, or at least he's the final authority when it comes to all of this. And so it seems as though we're still a couple of chapters away from the match that will have the connector in it. If I were to guess, I say we're looking at maybe 3 more chapters max. Because this chapter has been hyped up for a while. It's been like, I would say 7 chapters since we knew this fight was gonna happen eventually. And even though we've had a few fights here and there, like we had the Kuroki and Team Kuroki versus the Team Worm situation, and even the Setsuna versus Nico fight, the fight that I want to see right now is the fight that will involve the connector. And probably I would guess it's going to be Kuroki, but for now it's still up in the air. So yeah, that's the review. If you liked it on the topics that I talked about in this video, don't forget to like and sub. And yeah, more videos, or at least one video coming out this week. And yeah, that's it. Take it easy.